who has stepped. A tribute to all mothers and all who embody motherhood. Today is a celebration not just for mothers, but all who embrace the nurturing, guiding, and selfless spirit of motherhood. Whether you are a biological mother, a stepmother, a guardian, a mentor, or a father who has stepped into the role with unwavering love, this moment is for you. Motherhood is not defined solely by birth. It is a calling, an act of devotion that shape lives in profound ways. It is found in the gentle encouragement when a child hesitates, the strength behind late night worries, and the wisdom passed down across generations. It is in every sacrifice made, every lesson taught, and every embrace that reassures a child they are safe, seen, and loved. To the mothers who tirelessly give of themselves, who nurture dreams and instill values, your love is the foundation upon which futures are built. To the grandmothers, aunts, and mentors who extended their hearts beyond their own families, wavering a tapestry of support. Your influence reaches far beyond what you may realize. And to the fathers who embody both roles, who lead with both strength and tenderness, your presence is a reminder that love knows no boundaries. Today, we honor each of you, the caregivers, the nurturers, the protectors, and the guides. We celebrate your resilience, your patience, your unwavering faith in those you care for. Because of you, the world is kinder, stronger, and more compassionate. Let us take this moment not only to express gratitude, but to remind you your work, your love, your sacrifices, they matter. They shape lives in ways words cannot fully capture. So, here's to you, the mothers, the mother figures, and the fathers who nurture with a mother's heart. May you always be uplifted in the love that you generously give to others. Happy Mother's Day from Soul, Light, and Body, Enrichment of Mind, Body, and Soul, the Reflective Speaker Series, and the Holistic Healing Hour, supporting us, and your meaningful feedback and voice helps shape our journey. Please continue to share your thoughts with us so we can continue to deliver content that empowers, uplifts, and inspires you. This is from the team: Karen Pascal, Joan Williams, Tommy Thompson, Will Williams, and 246 Bajan Vibes family. We thank each and every one of you for supporting us, and a happy Mother's Day to all you beautiful people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Happy Mother's Day to each and every one of you out there. It is such a beautiful time when we can celebrate something special, you know, and we are nurturers. We always pouring, but we don't know how to receive. And many times we try to receive, but because we're not open enough to understand how to receive. But this evening, we got some real special guests that's going to help us to understand how we can receive because we give, we pour, and we are not open, as I said, to receive back the special things that is being poured back onto us. So this evening, we want you to just sit back, just relax, because this is going to be a very interactive panel discussion. And make sure you have a notepad and you have a pen because we're going to be discussing motherhood. And motherhood is it's like a dance, you know. It's like a rhythm. It's giving, as I said, and receiving. And we pour, we keep pouring all the time, we keep pouring, and we don't realize how essential we have to balance it. As we pour, we got to receive so we can balance it out. And receiving without guilt, because many times we don't know how to receive. We feel guilty about receiving something, or we feel guilty about even asking for help, you know. And the thing is that we need to embrace both sides, giving and receiving, because we allow ourselves to become even stronger as givers. So this evening, I'm not going to give away much. This evening, I want you to sit back. I want you to relax. I want you to have a pen and I want you to have a notepad because a lot of tools is going to be given to us this evening. And if you know someone who can benefit from this podcast, just share us out. And don't forget to subscribe to Soul Light and Body that you'll never miss none of these interactive, inspiring, informative episodes. And we got some very special guests this evening. Dr. Marcy, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for being that special mother that you are, that rock that you are, and with you being on this panel this evening, you will help to share some stories. How as a mother, how you can pivot and be that foundation that your son in particular can stand on at this point in time in his life, and many mothers need to hear this story because the thing is that we move through life, but we never know what is going to happen. We never know as a parent, we never know what is going to happen. And we got to fill in that gap for our children. So just sit back and just relax. And we got Dr. Rass is going to be in the house this evening as well. We have Will Williams, no stranger to this community here. And we have Tommy Thompson. He's going to share his story as well. So just sit back and relax and just enjoy this 2 hours with us. And as I said, if you know a friend who can benefit from this podcast, just share us out. And don't forget to subscribe again. Do not forget to pick up our books on Amazon. Your Gut and You and Self-Care is Intentional. And our magazine is free of cost. Start Healthy. Just subscribe. Everything is in the footnotes. Just go check the footnotes and you're going to see everything in there. So I'm going to toss the mic now to Lady J. Lady J, take the mic.
Great opener as always. What a special evening. What a special topic.
Yes.
This evening, we're going to talk about so many things which we would uncover because I know a lot of people trouble with this giving and receiving and the concept of it and how it should be done and every single thing. But it would be so great that we're going to hear different perspectives tonight. I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all mothers. In our lives, our mother, she was our hero, our role model, someone who was truly amazing. She has transitioned, but everything that my our mother and grandmother have instilled in both of us, we still live by those principles: the power of giving, the power of receiving, kindness, mindfulness, respect, love, and all those things, because that is our makeup. Those things are our foundation. The level of gratitude for ourselves and gratitude for others. So we remember them tonight, and we always remember them because they live in our heart. But being tonight is today's Mother's Day, we just want to say thanks to them for everything they've taught us and helping us to evolve as young women. And to my beautiful, amazing sister, Lady K, for the mother that she has become, the role that she's playing as a mother to her daughter. I love you.
Love
I'm
you.
so proud of you for all the amazing things that you continue to accomplish and continue to evolve. And know that our mom and our grandmother, the spirit still lives on, and they're proud of you just the way as I am proud of you too as
Thank
well.
you.
So I just want to say that, and the women in our lives and even the men as well, but because we're talking about Mother's Day today, when we have the strong women in our lives, and they're our bedrock, they're the ones we look up to, they're the ones who give us a level of strength that we can go forward in life. And even though they may transition and move beyond this the space in this world right now, but we remember the things that they have taught us. There are moments in our lives that may show up, and you may ask yourself, well, what my mom would have wanted to do in this moment? What would she say to me in this moment? And really, if you stay quiet, and you would hear that whisper, you would get that wisdom, how to make that decision. I know there are moments that there are times when something great will happen for us, and we wish if our mom was here in the moment that you could make that phone call, because we used to talk to her every day. That's the kind of relationship we had with her. Every day we talked to her a couple times a day. And one of the things before we leave the conversation, or end the conversation, we always say to our mom, Mom, I love you. We always say that every time, because love was our centerpiece. Gratitude was our centerpiece. We stand on those foundation, and we live by that unto today. That those are some of our guiding principles that we move forward in life, and we keep exchanging and sharing that level of energy, that level of vibration that we bring to the table all the time. It's love. Love. It's a beautiful thing. So we just and now my niece, which is Karen's daughter, she's a mother. She's a mother now. And so the same tradition and the same level of integrity and the same thing she is now passing on to her son. Talk a little bit about that, Lady K.
You know, the thing is that as you look back, you now understand what was being imparted into our lives as young children growing up, because I was able to impart that into my daughter and give her a foundation that she could stand on. And because of that foundation now, she can able to nurture her son and help him to understand at the age of 3 that this is how you're going to be moving through life. You will come upon obstacles, but there are things that you can use when these obstacles arise in your life. And at 3 years old, the things that he know for a 3 year old, it's truly amazing
Mm-hmm.
because she took the time to give him the tools that is necessary for him
Right.
as he moved through life. And as parents, we need to give our children the foundation that they could stand on as they move through life because they're going to need that foundation. And you have to start when they're pretty young so that they can absorb these tools and have these tools. Because many times, which I know Tommy Thompson or Dr. Marcy or Will or Dr. Ross, many times the things our parents told us when we were little, we remember it. Oh, my mom told me that,
Right.
you know? So we got to start when they were pretty young. We have to feed them the right kind of food that they need at a very early age. So
Yeah.
when they're moving through life, they understand life on a real deep level. Of course, some of the things would go, but some things would be ingrained into them
Right.
that as they move through life, they will always remember, you know what? My mom told me that.
Right.
Or fathers who are acting the mother's role. I remember my dad told me that. My mom was not around, but I remember my dad told me that. Whenever you come up into a situation or an experience that is coming up in your life. And I always remember my grandmother always said to myself and Joan, she said, let love be the foundation that you stand on. She said you will come up obstacles in life. You will meet people who is gonna like you and people who is not gonna like you. But she said continue to pour love in every person you meet. Continue to pour love. Let love be that foundation that you both gonna be standing on moving through life. And that is what we live on to today.
Yeah.
Love
Mm-hmm.
is our foundation because she
Yeah.
pour love into us. My mother pour love into us.
Mm-hmm.
That is why each and every person we meet, we pour love into them. It doesn't
Right.
matter who you are. We pour
Right.
love into you.
Mm-hmm.
We're always here to help you because that is what we came from. My
Mm-hmm.
grandmother had a kitchen garden, and I remember when she reaped these crops, she would always give to us, take this to the neighbor, give this to the neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
go down the street, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things is still with myself and Joan that we always there for people. It doesn't matter what. We're gonna be here
Right.
for you. We're gonna be there. We're gonna hold that space for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? We know what it is. Because life, there are different things happen to us in life. And when you know you can go to a safe space
Right.
and that person could hold that space for you, that's all that's matter. That
Right.
is all that matter, and we are so happy that we are having this conversation this evening because,
Yeah.
as mothers, many times we are looking for that safe space where someone who we could lean on to because we may be going through something in life and we're looking for that person, that one friend, or that one family member that we could lean to and hold that space for us, you know, be that person for that person.
Yeah. And just a kind word. Just a
Yes.
kind word. Sometimes you don't have to say anything, as you rightfully said, holding the space. Sometimes you just don't have to just be a listener, listen with generosity, as we learned from in the school we graduated from. And as you always say, listening is a tool, and you listen with a level of generosity because
Yes.
you don't know what the person might be experiencing, and they want to have a safe space where they can feel at ease and comfort. And when you can create that level of space that someone could come and unburden themselves and just talk and just say how they feel, and they just feel good after that moment. Our mom was an amazing cook. She was an amazing cook, and she cooked great stuff and great food and everything. And she taught us how to cook and how to share. And we would go to shelters at the end of the year,
Darasala.
right? At the end of the year, because it's Christmas time and stuff like that. And remember, even though we were little kids then, but now we can look back now and remember how our grandmother would just gather both of us together and say, this is what we're gonna do. And we go to the Sala place, and there are so many homeless and underprivileged, and we would just go and serve as little kids. We would just go and give, and those things, those are impression that stays with you, because from that moment you understand what kindness is. When you share, when you walk around the table, and whatever is it that you're sharing in that moment, and you just hear that they would say thank you, thank you. And there is where the reciprocity is, because you see the smile in those faces, and they're so happy. There's a level of joy. And so there's where we came from. So we accustomed to, it's in within us to share and to give, and then had to understand now the art of receiving, because as you give, it's an exchange of energy. And so I'm so glad that this is the topic we're talking about tonight. This Mother's Day, yes, but we're talking about the art, the power of giving, and the power of receiving, because sometimes it's difficult for people to receive. So this is a good conversation tonight, and we got a great panel tonight who's going to talk about this, and we're going to hear their perspectives of how, what the concept is about giving and how it should be done from their point of view, giving, and how we should be able to receive, and that level of energy that's been exchanged in a moment. Thank you for going out and purchase our books. You got in you. It's so essential, because it helps you to focus on your microbiome, avoiding brain fog and fatigue and every single thing. Make great choices of the kind of food that you nourish yourself, because in order to live life in a level of alignment, you want to nourish yourself. You want to feel good and nutrients in your body. And then the next thing is that self-care is super important, because how we take care of ourselves as a person is important. They go hand in hand, I would say. Keeping your cup filled. And self care is not only, as we would say, yes, of course, it's luxurious, a great bubble bath and stuff like that, nice candlelight dinner. That is good in every single thing. But then there is other aspect, there is other components, your mental, your physical. Because in order to serve and to give, your cup got to be filled. Because you can't serve from an empty cup. You may want to serve, yes, you can serve, but how are you serving? Are you serving in your power? Are you strong enough to serve? What are you giving? What are you giving in that moment when you exchange? You feel full, you feel satisfied, you feel strong, you're stepping in that level of greatness. How are you feeling in that moment? So it's in order to do that, your cup is essential that your cup is filled. And so that when you serve and when you step into spaces, your vibration is high. It can be felt in the moment. As soon as you step into that room, it can be felt, because that energy is there. You well, you aligned, you're good. So when you come, people remember that moment, because they remember the level of vibration, how they feel, because people never forget how you make them feel. Everything else can happen, but how you make them feel, how you make them feel in that moment after the exchange, the energy is exchanged in that moment. How do you make them feel? What do you leave them with? What do you leave them with in that moment? What do you leave them with that they can remember? They say, wow, that was a great conversation. I feel good. I feel uplifted. I feel motivated. I feel to go after my dream. Whatever is my desires are, I feel I could go after it, because I was inspired in that moment. The energy was right. The vibration was good. And I can go after it, whatever that may be for you. So tonight, sit back, relax. The vibration is high tonight. And we got a lot, it's a great topic. So find a comfortable space in your home where you can relax to take your notes and just absorb this moment and remember the people who were great to you in your lives. Those of you not who has transitioned, and those who are still here with you. The level of gratitude. Give that every day. Gratitude is a tool. Incorporate that in your life every day and be thankful. My name is Lady J, holistic health and wellness coach, and writing books and speaking and every single thing. But the most important thing we just want to say before I step and toss the mic to our great guest is that remind yourself who you are. Remind yourself that you're special. Remind yourself that you're amazing. Remind yourself that you are enough. You are enough. And where you are, sometimes it might be in a low space tonight. That does not define you. Because you can get back up. You have that within you. Tap in. Tap into your inner self, your inner being, and rise. Because there is greatness in you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Will Williams, Dr. Marcia, and we know Dr. Ross is going to be here. Tommy Thompson, welcome. It's a great panel tonight. Karen and I are so overjoyed that we're talking about this topic tonight.
It's a good subject. It's a good subject. Really is. It really is.
It really is. Right, right. I can hear the energy in your voice. We know that you're going to be speaking to the subconscious tonight.
Absolutely, I am. Absolutely.
Dr. Marcia,
Good night, everyone.
good night. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to you too.
Thank you.
Of course, I'll be looking at this topic from the Christian leadership perspective
Right. Right.
and the idea, which is really a principle and a foundation of giving and receiving in motherhood and in parenting, that you're preparing your children for this life and the life to come.
Mhm.
And so motherhood is framed in the context of divine mission with eternal dividends and consequences. And that's the level at which I'll be discussing this topic tonight.
Good. That's
Okay.
good.
Well, thank you,
Well,
Dr.
yeah,
Marcia.
that's really good. Good introduction. I like that.
Thank you.
Well,
Well,
Oh,
speak to
okay.
the subconscious mind.
All right. All right. I can do that. Um, First, let me thank you guys for having me on the show, on this panel too, because it's a good subject, as the doctor said. And to understand, like she said, she was going to connect to it from the spiritual aspect, which is where I'm going to go to,
good.
because people don't realize that giving and receiving is a form of abundance. And
Yes,
so
Ooh, I think
they,
somebody
like
said
that.
something
I
there.
like that.
yeah, they lose that, So they just think, okay, if I give, then I'm giving from my heart, and that's the end of it.
Mhm.
But it's going to be a return on that giving, and it may not come immediately, but you're not doing it for that effect. And if you go through the Bible, for instance, since we're going to talk a little bit with religion involved in this, if you go to 2 Corinthians 9 and 7, or either Acts 20:35, they talk about uh, giving and receiving. And so those two things are connected with our physical being, right? To where if I gave something to you, Lady J, or Lady K, then I wouldn't expect you to turn around and give me something. I'm not giving it in the form of I expect something in return.
Right,
Right.
right,
And
right.
that's where people get this wrong at.
True.
They give, and then they like, okay, where's my return at? I'm waiting
Mhm.
Yes.
around, and after about 2 weeks, they still waiting around. Hey, something needs to happen here. I did give up something, so don't I get
Right,
something
right,
back?
right, right.
But that's not how it works. It's sort of like the karma. It may not come immediately, but you can be guaranteed that it's got your name, and it's somewhere down the road. It's going to knock on your door, and so that's what giving and receiving is. So when you give something, you give it out of the expectation that it's received in a manner of the goodness that you're giving it. Like
Yeah.
I like to give things there's a donation place around. It's called Goodwill. I like to give things to Goodwill,
Mm-hmm.
and they take that and refurbish it and then sell it. Right now, I'm not concerned about whether they selling it or not, because
True.
I'm giving it for somebody else to use. Right.
Right.
Sure.
And so when you look at it from the perspective of, well, I could have sold that myself, maybe so, but maybe not. But when you give it, somebody else can use that item. And so you're giving it out of the intention that it will be used by somebody who desires it and needs it at that time.
Right.
Just like you did when you bought it, with the intention that I really need this thing. So I'm going to buy it and then I'll get my use out of it. And once you've done so, now it's time to pass that along, or you can just trash it. But for the most part, it would be better if you gave it somewhere where somebody else could receive the gift that comes off of that item, right? And so, I just think that people miss the aspect of the abundance of it. And when you look at it from that perspective, then you're enriched, because you feel good whether you're receiving or giving. It's the same thing to you. And so you don't look at it in a manner of expectation. And that's how you have to. That's how you get the abundance out of it. Is you're not expecting anything back. And so this is going to be a good conversation as we go through it. I'm pretty sure we're going to touch on a lot of different points because we got the guests are from various fields, and so we'll be able to touch on it from our own perspective, and that's going to bring some value to the people that's watching and listening to this show tonight. So I'll leave it at that and let somebody else jump in from here.
Wow.
Tommy?
Both Dr. Powell, you're going to say Dr. Powell, and well, it's just a really good way how you really started off this conversation from the spiritual standpoint, and like who you pitch in there. Well, you talk about look at it as a level of abundance, because I think most of the time, because scarcity is so much of someone thinking out, it might be coming from a limited belief.
Absolutely.
That they cannot see the level of abundance for them. And just knowing that when you give them from the heart space with love, that exchange and just giving that by itself alone is room, it's space, because you're not giving with no expectation.
Right.
You're giving it because there is love in your heart. You're giving it from a heart space. And so I think that if you want to say it's a law, that's how it works, that you give abundance and it automatically, it will return to you.
Right.
Not from the same person who you give from. If it comes from the same person, that's fine. But you're just doing as you feel called to.
That's right.
And your mindset is thinking of abundance. Tommy Thompson, thank you.
Thank you.
And that abundance that you're talking about, in my mind, can only be received if you give what you have decided in your heart to give cheerfully. God calls it.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a
And
good one.
giving from, not from compulsion, the Bible says, or because you want applause or praise, but because from that core part that you're talking about, you are given to fill a need to someone who need, and that giving is really motivated from the gratefulness that is in you, that someone gave to you and you are now paying it forward, and that God provided in the universe destiny helpers to carry you fumbling through the dark into light. And so when you give from that place, abundance is already guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that is why some people give sparingly. They measure what they are giving to people, even when they can give a large. We call those persons misers, because the spirit from which they give is a spirit of covetousness, a spirit of fear, or a spirit of wanting to be seen and honored and cheered and given accolades because they are giving. Not
Yes.
because they have to give, but because their gift is tied up into the same reward that was mentioned earlier. They are giving to receive something in return, but you can only receive in abundance when you give to fit that need, trusting in God's provision and in the fact that God enabled you to give.
Okay.
That's beautiful, Dr. Powell. Yeah, that
Well
is
said.
beautiful. That's
Well
really, really
said.
beautiful. Just beautiful way how you outline that. Yeah. Thank you.
Tommy?
Okay. As Dr. Marcy and Will were talking, it came to me, and this is to honor my grandmother Thompson. She got married when she was 15 down south. They were migrant workers and sharecroppers. I'm the first generation not to stare at the ass of another man's mule or chop and pull another man's cotton. It was a hard life, sun up to sundown. But she had the most loving spirit. She was the iron our family was built around. And she lived in 97. Her mother lived in 96.
Hmm.
But she gave me a Bible verse that I'm going to quote here because it touched my life deeply. And it's in Isaiah 55.
Mm, mm,
Wow.
mm.
But,
John, Isaiah
yeah,
55.
Yep. Love it,
and
love it, love it.
it's verses 8 and 9.
Mhm.
And what she told me, and there was a lot of hard things going on in my life, and this is not all that many years before she died. She said, Tommy, Tommy, God's ways aren't ours, son. You know, and this is what it reads. This plan of mine is not what you would work out. Neither are my thoughts the same as yours. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts than yours. She had lived a very hard life. Her husband died on her, and she went on for another 22 years. And just once she passed, and then my dad passed within a few months of her, it was like our family just spread. She was the iron and the glue that held us all together. And I'll probably be talking about another, but she's a figure who's talk and love, and her husband, my grandpa, carried us through so many hard times. And I think that's all I need to say right now. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's special.
Yes.
That's special. Wow. Yeah.
But you notice this is that Tom, remember,
Of course.
after all these years,
Mm-hmm.
you remember that scripture. That is what I
Powerful.
was talking about in the opening statement. We remember these things as little
Of
kids,
course.
what was being said to us. And that is what we come through life with. But many times we don't pay attention.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When we're coming through life, the tools are given to us, but we don't pay attention to the tools. And we don't understand the tools, how to work the tools. Because if you understand the scripture, that scripture speaks volume. It speaks volume. Myself and Joan love Isaiah 55
Yeah.
because it speaks a lot of volume,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why these things are our foundation that
Right.
we need to stand on as we go through life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can look back and remember what was being said, it can only give us that door that we can walk through, knowing that we have that foundation that we're standing on.
Yeah.
Right, Dr.
Right.
Marcy?
Yes, that is the key. And I'm happy you mentioned it from the point of view of tools. And I'm happy how Tommy came up with one of the tools
Right.
that parenting must give to children, and that is the belief in themselves and in their creator. We must teach our children that they are fearfully and wonderfully made,
Right.
Yes.
and that they
Yes.
are
Right.
really born to do anything. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
they are proportioned, pre-designed, pre-approved to do some things. So you are born to do anything, but you are
Mm-hmm.
not born to do everything. And so
Right.
we must center them in what they are created for, why they exist. And so as parents, they watch what we do
True.
more than what we say. And if we are kind and we are not just speaking kindness, that is what leaves the
True.
impression. And I can tell you, I remember my mother. She used to, she was a nurse and she was a community builder. And as she went through the community, sometimes she really had the gifts of help. She was destined to help. And as she tied her spiritual gifts to her career, she became a nurse. She started out regularly, then she became a midwife, then she became a public health. And she, in her normal life, understood what her gift of helps mean. And so sometimes we're on our way somewhere and she would come literally upon someone who spoke to her and had a difficulty with a pair of shoes. And my mother wore size 11. So it's those sizes are hard to get by. And she would find somebody and she would take off the shoes that she has on her feet, give it to them. And you would have to trek back to get a new pair in her house, one of the pairs that she left in her house. It was not an issue for her to give of herself, to give her last lunch money, to give her last bus fare, taxi fare. And she always says God will provide. And so the tools, you are given a toolkit because of the modeling that
Yes.
we are really supposed to do, because as we give of ourselves and our lives, that is the true thing that is different between normal giving and parental giving. A mother gives differently than anybody else giving to friends or neighbors. It's a sacrificial, unconditional, unquestionable giving. A mother does not think twice to give up her life for her child. A mother always wants her child to be more comfortable. That's why they feed their children even when they're hungry. If there's a last, they choose to give their children. We have all of those examples. But those types of demonstrations that come from the authentic frame and core of our hearts give our children those tools. And it's not that they don't understand the tools, it's that they don't recognize the tools, it's that they don't need to use it until there's a time for it to be used.
True,
And
true.
the older they get is now the opportunity they are given to use those tools. You can't be kind unless you find somebody who is in need. And sometimes as they go through their life, they are framing their lives, they are putting their lives together. They don't have any reason to be kind or not to be kind. They are really not in need as they frame themselves. They don't know what it means to endure unless they have someone who has hurt them, that is close enough to them, that they value in such a way that they have to forgive. They don't know what it is to accept their brother or their sister for who they are until they understand what family really means. And those are the tools that they are given. But there are times in your life, different seasons and different springs, where you have to use and reach for those toolkits because it is time to use them. You don't fix your pipe and or call in a plumber unless the valve gets damaged, or you have to do something else. You don't ask somebody to fix your roof unless it's leaking. It's not that you don't have the tools, it's because you don't need it. You don't put a gate on your house if you don't have dogs damaging your neighbor's things. That's basically it. So the toolkits are developing us, and we develop them in our children unconsciously and subtly. Those are the tools that are enduring and lasting. It's not so much what we say to them, it's not the gifts that we give to them, the clothes, the shoes, and so on. It's
True.
the actions, the habits,
True.
the routines, the mentality that we have given to them,
True.
and the values that we instill in them. That is the toolkit that they draw from when it is necessary.
Wow, that's so
Love it.
beautiful. That's so beautiful, Dr. Powell. That is so beautiful. Wow. Wow.
That was well said. Well said. Dr. Ross, welcome, welcome,
Welcome,
welcome,
welcome,
welcome,
welcome.
welcome.
Thank you for being here with us. It's always a
Good.
joy
We
to
we
share
have
space with
we
you.
have one of your country people here, Dr. Marcy. He's from Jamaica as well.
Dr.
Hello,
Russell, I
hello,
have a history.
everyone. How are we doing? Dr. Ross here. Lady J, Lady K, how are we doing?
Excellent.
Hello. Gentlemen, how are we? I'm Dr. Ross, really a scientist, you guys know. And let me tell you, if I was a blind man, I could tell you that Dr. Marcy is in the house because she has a very distinguished voice that I love. And everything that she says has meaning. She doesn't waste words.
True.
And so it's very important. Not only is it good to listen to, it's like music to your ears because of the accent, and I am biased because I'm Jamaican made. Um, but absolutely listen to what she says because from word to word, it connects, right, to a bigger picture. And so I always appreciate sharing the floor with her and just listening. It's hard to follow all the time, but I love a challenge. So thank you. I'm glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
Hello to you.
Hello, hello, hello. Right. Wow. That was nicely said. Yeah, we feel the same about Dr. Marcia because she is such a true inspiration, such a joy every time we share space with her because she always inspire us, uplift us, and make us think. Whatever the subject we are talking about. Yeah, thank you.
Hmm. You know, there's a psychological aspect of giving and receiving as well. You know,
Right.
uh, because when you look at it from the perspective of the psychology of giving, it's sort of like it triggers purpose. You know, it gives you when you give, you feel a purpose for doing that. But it
Mm-hmm.
also triggers the neutrons in the brain to where you get a release of dopamine and other chemicals that make you feel good about that. So, I mean, I'm looking. This is going to be a really in-depth conversation, especially since we have the two doctors on board too. So it covers all of this aspect, from the spiritual to the psychological aspect of it, and the chemical release that comes from that. That people don't even, most people don't even think about that. They just know they go away feeling satisfied and like they've done something, right? But they don't connect the dots with dopamine has been released because you've done something that you feel really good about. So this is going to be a really good in-depth conversation about this.
Yeah, we know that the brain the scientist is waiting to jump in there when you talk about dopamine.
Good deal.
No, you absolutely. I think I don't know if they paid you for this, but that is a perfect segue. And I'm not sure how you have it set up now. If you would like to have one of the guests or yourself, but what I like to do as an educator and a teacher is actually give you stuff that you can use in real time. So I'd ask the audience, people that's listening, and if we can share on the screen if someone's brave enough. But I'd like you to look up My Happy Genes, because I always like to start the story off with speaking about my happy genes and what it is and what it means to the conversation. And so that's my happy genes, GENES.com. So, Lady J, Lady K, if you can pull that up on and share on the screen, that will be great. But I'll be speaking about Dr. J. Dunn and my happy genes and her discovery of happiness because so Dr. J. Dunn is a behavioral nutritionist and studies genetics as well now because she went on a personal journey where she has never experienced what we all know as happiness, right? And she was about in her early 40s when she went down now a individual journey of understanding herself, understanding where her heritage, family, and where, what all that means for overall health, right? And so what she did was found out by doing, you go to look at um, looking at my ancestry and this and that, but it's deeper than that, right? Understanding your genetics. So epigenetics is what this is all about. And so your genetics is your genes and your makeup of yourself. So your DNA, which makes up your RNA and your proteins, and then these are the enzymes and the things that you eat and consume. Well, you have essential amino acids, so things that you have to consume from diet that your body doesn't make, and then the rest your body makes. And all of that is what makes up what you are. And so what you eat turns into exactly what we just said. And that's why they say what you are, what you eat, right? But it's more than that. It goes into behavior as well. But you have to understand the DNA, the RNA, the proteins, the enzymes, right? The hormones, right? So you're building up to understand these functional things that work in your body. So I say all that to say Dr. Dunn went on to understand that in her genetic DNA makeup, that her brain does not produce dopamine, right? Exactly what this gentleman was talking about. And by understanding now the biochemical mechanism, well, for your brain to produce dopamine, you have to produce another neurotransmitter, another brain molecule that activates cells that's known as serotonin. Well, serotonin, which is 5-H tryptophan, right? Well, to produce serotonin, you need 5-HT. But in order to produce 5-HT, you need three essential things. You need vitamin A, vitamin K, which works together to make vitamin D. Well, in her body, you have your DNA makeup that tells you how do you make these things, right? Like we all process sugars, we all process salt, but how we individually process sugars and salts depend on how you actually make these molecules. Well, in her case, there was a misformation, right, of the way that she forms vitamin A. So now she couldn't form vitamin A to help form the combination of vitamin A and K to then make vitamin D. So once she found out, okay, that was the problem, the other part of this was finding out, well, aside from medication and drugs, how can you fix that? Well, you can fix that through essential amino acids, consumption, nutrition, diet. So she was able to find out that if she had the right diet and exposed herself to the right substances, then her body had the nutrients and the makeup to actually form the proper enzyme in the vitamin K to make vitamin A and K combination to make vitamin D. So once you started consuming the right things to get to the proper level that these enzymatic biochemical actions can occur, she created 5-HT, which then created and allowed the substrate, the substance of serotonin, which then allowed for the first time through diet for her brain to produce dopamine. And poof, she's sitting there in a room like, oh my God, is this what happy is? Is this what everyone talk? Is this what I read about and studied about? And so from that, she created My Happy Genes. And My Happy Genes is basically an analysis of all the things that I just said in different ways, to find out how do you as an individual, as a person, right, as you, how do you process these different things? How do your biochemistry enzymes work, right? How do you process not only just foods, but your hormone levels, right? Compared to we have the same hormones, but the different levels relative to your health and wealth. So, and then what can you respond to as far as new food and nutrition? And so by putting that combination together, we have My Happy Genes. And so I think that's a perfect conversation and lead into what you said about, having this type of talk where behavior, understanding your behavior, understanding yourself, right? Your genetics, your makeup, how do you work in this physical real world, right? And then understanding your psyche, your psychology behind that. If you can go by the potato chip aisle 5 times before you break, or does it take you 7 or 20 times before you pass the ice cream and break? Understanding your behavior and all these other things, you put that together, right? And that's what epigenetics is. It's basically your lifestyle on top of how your genes work.
That's a good explanation.
And
Really good. Before you ladies jump in, because it's never been, we're talking about giving and receiving, but it's never been discussed from the level that the doctor just presented it, because you have people who may not, as he suggested there, have ever experienced what that feels like.
True.
And so he just covered something that somebody's watching this show right now or watch the replay will connect the dots that he's talking to me. This is what I experienced, but I didn't understand or know what it was, but he just explained it in detail to where now they can figure out how to talk to their doctors to sort of come to some type of resolution or start some type of, path to get them where they understand what's been going on with them.
But it does go to show, and I want to put that in from the point of view of how we are created and formed. Every single one of us have a DNA, the DNA that is linked to us, because the family that we're born into is no accident. It doesn't just happen. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are orchestrated. The passage through which we are lent or delivered on this earth through what we call the merging of a sperm and a gene is really a divine design. It is not a design that is arbitrary or nonchalant or just occurs. The problem that we find is that what we give to those children that are lent to us either builds them or breaks them, hinders them or help them. And one of the ways in which they are hindered is that happiness is not a choice as some persons make it, because children cannot grow up in conflict and choose happiness. It's not natural.
Mhm.
They cannot grow up in noise and confusion and chaos and become ordered and structured. It's not natural. They have to have an alternative that is presented, whether by default or very deliberately, to change that framework. And this is what might have occurred in relation to some default in my happy genes. Thankfully, she got herself into an environment where she began to
Mhm.
search into herself and recognize that something is not right.
Right.
Because you cannot use what you don't know that you have.
True.
And neither can you correct a problem if there is no indication that something does not feel or look similar to
Right.
something else. And this difference can make you now become unique and different, which is what has happened in the happygenes.com. Because here it is that a solution has come up for persons who have similar issues
Right. Right.
and similar situations because of what they were given at birth or in
Mhm.
their environment or in the structure, where they should have been protected and should have been able to laugh and be happy and grow up to be well-rounded individuals that have been nurtured by what they were able to receive. And they should have been given an opportunity to give something that would bridge the gap between this uncertainty, this unhappiness, this misunderstanding of what God wants us to be. And it brings home the point that because our children are linked to us, and God tells us, you yourself, as a child, you are born. You must number your days so you are able to apply your heart to wisdom. The Bible asks, and we are told that we must ask God to teach us to number our days, that we understand that we are here for a period of time. And in this equation, because life is made up of giving and receiving,
Mhm.
in this equation, for giving and receiving to become a power bank to purpose, to self-actualization, to our happiness, to our aligning us to our calling, we must first of all understand the power that we have as givers and receivers, and we must monitor and we must direct that power into purposeful and intentional actions that add value to us and add value to others. If we are not doing that, then we have become discordant notes. We are not fitting well. We are disturbers of the peace. We are namesayers. We are complainers. We are everything except holistic. And that's really the danger of misgiving and of
Wow.
misreceiving, because that's the once we're out of alignment, I am saying we are misgiving and we are misreceiving. And that is why we
Mhm.
find so many persons pour into callings that were never their calling and gave to people who they expect to be eternally grateful to them, and get real upset when people are not giving back to them what they think they what they think they would have stored up in them, in giving them opportunities, helping them. There are some persons who will tell you, what I have done for you, you're ungrateful. But nobody asked you. Nobody asked you. And so you were given to the wrong person, because when if you're given to who you were ordained and who you were directed by the universe, by God, pre-established, pre-designed, and pre-approved to give, they will always be grateful, because
True.
you change lives, you change outcome,
Yeah.
you are
Yeah. I know.
impacting, you're growing, and you're inspiring others. If you're doing something other than that in your daily interactions, in how you exchange, give and receive is what we are calling that exchange. If you're finding yourself at the end at all times expecting to receive because of what you have given, then you have by default become a discordant note. because there are persons in life that every single one of us will give to that don't have anything to give us back in return, because we were
Right.
created to give, to pour into their cup, to fill that cup. And they were not expected to fill our cup. We are paying, they were expected to pay it forward to move into who they are designed and pre-designed and pre-approved to help. And we must be very careful how we keep recalling in our giving persons who are not to receive from us. We keep calling them into our space and frustrating them, derailing their destiny and putting so much of their potential into dormancy, because they now become obligated to us, and they become servants to us because they are receiving from us, and we are not the fountain that they are supposed to be receiving from. We hold them hostage, and until they are able to free themselves to say, whether you give to me or not, you are not the person I'm to be giving, and or you are not the person I'm to be receiving from. Unless they are able to cut that tie in spirit and mind and body, they will forever be captives, very unhappy and very unfulfilled, because there is a gap that they will never be able to fill unless they break away.
Wow. 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 So you have to have a level of discernment. Is that right? You have to have the, because when you talk about misgiving, so one have to have a level of discernment and to know where should I give and where I should not give. Or also you give because you want to give, but then there's no expectation, as we established early in the conversation, right?
Right.
Dr. Marcia?
Yes, and that is why when a mother gives, no matter what the mother gives, no matter how many sacrifices the mother gives, the mother becomes refreshed because the mother is refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
There is this refreshing that is going on. When there is a lack or there is a gap, we find that we don't have what we call good measure. It's not pressed down, it's not shaken, it's not running
Running
over.
over.
Yes, it's not running over. And for that reason, when we give in the framework of how we are to give, maybe this is a better way to put it. We are giving from an overflow. We
Right.
never run dry. We are not giving from a lack. We are giving from an
Mm-hmm.
overflow.
Mm-hmm.
If we are given under pressure, and if we are given under duress, compulsion, or force, if it is not from persuasion, then we are really not giving. We are not giving at all. We are exchanging. And giving and receiving is not an exchange. It's a journey.
Oh,
It's not a
that's a
transaction.
new way to look at it.
Yeah. It's not
Sorry.
a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
We are not bartering. We are not exchanging. We are giving from a pure fountain. We are giving to fill a need. We are giving to change an outcome. We are giving to change a life. We are giving to impact. We are giving to grow. We are giving to inspire. Once we are doing that, there is no return that we are looking for. There is a return that is already laid up for us.
Okay.
So we are not looking for a return now, because if when we look for a return, we give God boundaries. But when we are giving from that place of overflow to fill that need, to inspire, to grow, to impact, we are actually expecting what the universe will give us in return. And that in
Okay.
itself is universal and can come from others. So say, for example, we may be able to give somebody encouragement through sending them to college, but what we get in return is good health. We are never sick, so we don't have to be spending money. The money that we spend, we save it because we are never sick. We don't get ill. And that is what the universe repays us with. And that is stored up, that is pressed down, that is shaken and running over, because that comes from a divine replacement and not from a physical or human carnal loss or desire.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Can I'd like to do something here on this time of giving. I want to bring a number of things together, which includes what I presented before with the My Happy Genes, but it is Mother's Day. And so happy Mother's Day to the mothers out there, the mothers to be, the mothers that was. But also, we're talking about this thing here about giving naturally. And so the ultimate mother, right, Mother Earth, and you think about giving. And what's interesting is what I talked about with my happy gene. I don't know if I explained how simple it is, but it's basically a simple swab to the mouth, and you'll send that to a lab. But what you get back is an understanding of yourself, right, of how you work. But what we provide then is nutritional type of regimens and things that work for you, right, personally. But I'm saying all this to say that if you look at it, we're just providing an educational awareness. But what this means is that for how you're designed, and for the ills of whatever in this life, the answers are here in nature around you. The medicines and the plants, the animals, the air, the soil, and everything around us, right? So it's just making that understanding that, again, the ultimate mother of giving, right, is that Mother Nature, and understanding that the solution
Very much so.
to your ills is, again, what's provided to us and for us on this earth, right? And that when you look to the source of the problem, if you, again, the solution usually resides in the problem. And that's why I'm saying it's one and the same. You're looking at your genetics and what's in the world and your environment and understanding that connection. And then that misalignment won't happen because you won't be caught up in that social learning, but it's more of a natural, authentic learning. So I can bring it back to the speakers now, but I just wanted to bring back how what we're talking about as far as these approaches to health and wellness goes beyond selling you a medication, right? But it's actually integrating and understanding the natural order of how we work and how we are. So I'll stop at that.
Thank you.
see, when y'all put this show together, y'all didn't expect this kind of depth in it. See, this is good. This is good because a lot of people have tried to discuss this topic, but not in the detail that we're getting it tonight. You know, so we're covering every aspect that you can even think about when it comes to this: the psychological, the spiritual, and the medical and scientific aspect of it. So we're going deep with this conversation, and it should leave people with the knowledge, or at least base information to where to start at, to truly understand why they do what they do when it comes to giving and how receiving is also a gift in itself. They should be able to appreciate it a lot more now.
But I think, thank you, Dr. Ross, for saying speaking, and Dr. Marcia. But when you're talking about, I'm glad that you're touching in this point, because I think there is where the hard time is for some people to receive. Right. Why is that?
Well,
talk a little bit deeper about that. Go a little deeper on that.
Okay. Well, you look at it from this perspective. If like the doctor suggested earlier, if your childhood has been filled with uncertainty, doubt, trauma, drama, you don't know how to accept something like that. You know, you do have people who, when you give them something, they have trouble accepting it. You know, right. they feel like a guilt comes over them, like I'm not good enough to accept this, you know. And so I think, as both doctors have sort of touched on, the psychology and the chemical aspect of this comes into play, because if you've gone through traumatic, incidents on your way up to adulthood, and you've never been really fully appreciated in a way that tells you that you are enough, as you like to say, Lady J, you can't put yourself into that position until you go back and sort of address that. And so in this conversation, we're covering that to some degree, but I think that overall, as we continue through this conversation, we'll probably get more in depth with that. But I think that's the reason that some people can't accept things. When you try to give them something, they'll turn you down, even though they need it desperately. They will still say no. And so they just have never experienced what that's like. And so it's hard for them to do it as an adult, because they've never had it just, hey, you accept this unconditionally from me. Because usually as a kid, if you come from a difficult situation, everything that's probably given to them is given with some type of condition attached to it. And
Hey,
so,
hey, William, Tommy, let me ask you guys a question on the same vein, right?
okay,
Um, so I want you to answer for me. Growing up in what we know as urban neighborhoods, growing up in the hood, you understand that for individuals, it's similar to almost a war zone,
right,
right? For
right,
even you can even say a social, a moral war zone, right? That you have to go through. And we know that soldiers go through something called shell shock, right? When you go through war. Now, I want you to equate that in your mind, but let me ask you something. So, if there's a car accident, right? There's four
right.
people in a car accident, and three of these people die, and that person survives. What do they have a problem with, and what do they call that? You probably know, right? When so if there's an accident and someone survives from the accident and the other people died, there's a condition, a psychological condition that happens, right? Do
Right.
any of you guys know what that's called? You ladies can ask too or answer as
But isn't it guilt?
there's
Yeah.
guilt in there, but it's two words, right? Two words.
Survivor guilt. Most
Survivor guilt?
veterans, yeah, have that.
Survivor's remorse is what it's
There
called,
you
and
go.
it's actually a condition, right? And
Right.
now, if you explain that condition, exactly what you just said, if you go look up that condition, now it's a psychological condition, in which it's hard to accept anything beyond the tragic episode or event that you had because you don't feel like you deserve to be here because
Mhm.
your mind keeps bringing you back to that trauma and that loss where individuals lost their lives. So then it's hard for you to accept anything, love, affection, X, Y, and Z beyond that point. And so what you're explaining, as you're explaining it to me, it's like you, and this is actually a great topic to have, but you can speak to a bunch of professionals who self sabotage because of
Yes.
this exact survivor's remorse, right?
Exactly.
Because they don't know how to act in a professional environment because they've never been here. And now, when you take about the car accident, I'm talking about leaving your friends stuck in the hood, leaving your family stuck in the hood. It's just as tragic as them dying in a car accident and
Yes.
not being in your life anymore.
Mm,
Now, I'm using an analogy so we can understand, but it is what it is. And speaking from personal and professional standpoint, I'm speaking from all of this. So I
Right.
want you
yeah.
guys to chew on that a little bit and see that we're not talking about anything foreign.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I want to
Yeah.
throw in giving overwhelm. And I call it giving overwhelm in my sphere of coaching because there are some persons and it happens to only children, people who are only child or those who are firstborn, where they might have had siblings and they were expected to be permanent examples, to always be there for them, to always show up for them, to always dress them. In fact, if the mother works out, they become the mother in the home, the oldest sibling, and those are the ones that the younger siblings look to. They are the ones who cook the dinner. They are the ones who dictate that they must now do the homework and so on. And sometimes they even abuse. But as they carry this burden into their personal space and relationships, they find that they must always become mother hens for other people, and
Mm-hmm.
so they become comfortable, unconsciously comfortable, being taken for granted because the granted that they're taken for is seen as a need. Without
Right.
me, my
Right.
sister
Right.
would manage. I have to do this so she can go to college. They are depending on me and so on. But of course, when you get sick, that's when the reality hits them that they were not as needed as they thought. And so when the time comes for persons to give to them, they get married into a relationship and their partners are to give to them, it's very difficult for them to accept it, and they are in the mode where they consider the person so much that they find themselves becoming the same thing that they left behind. And that's one of the reasons why they can't take anything. The next thing for some persons is also that they were always the givers, that now when they are received, their pride takes a hold of them, so
Yes.
they struggle with
Wow.
accepting
That's so
the
true.
help or the gifts because they always had a sense of self-sufficiency.
Mhm.
And there are
Mhm.
also persons who cannot accept what they are being given because of who they find now being the ones giving to them. And
Mhm.
sometimes life have a way of balancing life for us and taking us, humbling us away, in that who we rejected now becomes the chief cornerstone. And they are the persons that now will have to give to us. So we had looked down on them, we had criticized them when we had been, the universe was kind to us. And I always say, when life gives you gifts first, don't look down on your brother, because their time will come. And so they, some people find it very hard to accept because of how they treated, and the guilt and shame that they feel because how they treated this individual is now the person that has become the person that they will now receive from their soul breadwinner, their soul. And some persons do it, they show favoritism to one child or to a family
Yes.
member. They pour into them and they set them up, and these persons leave feeling entitled, never asked you, they are not as grateful as you thought. And so the person who you rejected now becomes a chief cornerstone because that person is able to give to you, and they feel very vulnerable, or they feel the shame and guilt, and they feel it very hard to take from you. And then there are some persons who are just sheer stupid or foolish in themselves, and they decide that I rather die than taking it from you. So even if you are the last person God put on earth, I will not be receiving it from
Yeah,
you, not for any real reason, but the
that's
fact that
true.
you are not the
It's
one
not.
that I want to be giving it to
Right,
me.
right,
And
Yeah,
right,
if
right.
you are the one that God has sent, then I prefer to do without. I prefer to die, because you are just not the person I expected, and I will not accept that, and I will not take it from you. So there are a number of reasons why people decide
Yeah.
that they are not receiving, and it's different for some people. And there are some persons who persons have given to them. Before I close this section of it, people have given to them, and what it has cost them, they have no developed a shell that they can trust no one,
True.
Right,
because what
right.
they have received from persons already, it
Mhm.
has, you are indebted to them, indebted to them for life.
yeah,
And
Mhm.
they make it known, and everywhere you go they say, if it was not for me, he would
Not
not have
right, right,
graduated, he
right,
would not have this, he
Yes.
right.
would
We
not have
heard
that,
that. Yeah.
even though the person would have paid you back tenfold already. And
Yes.
so they now feel that it's better they batter it out until they can do it for
Mm.
themselves. They no
Mhm.
longer trust anybody.
hmm,
Yes.
I would like
Right.
to interject something here
Yeah, sure.
that I'm informed by my two 12-step programs, which are very spiritual. And what I've seen is what the other three guests are talking about, that there's a giving and receiving there. And if there's not, your chances of recovering and being a healthy human being is like with addiction. It's proven that trauma is the greatest indicator of later becoming an addict or alcoholic,
hmm,
particularly for women. You know, I including my redhead Diana. She and I are both in those programs. That's how we met. And one of the things you're supposed to do as soon as you possibly can is give to others in any way you can, like setting up the meeting, making coffee. But it was so freely given to me. So it is my purpose in life now to give that back. And also a life that was lived selfishly. Both Diane and I have been married 4 times, including a failed marriage to each other. It is now my purpose to love her the best I can. And it's kind of come about in the last few years. And I don't think many of us guys raised, you know, I was born in 51, raised in a time we were, realize how selfish we are in our relationships with women.
hmm.
And the minute that I started, boy, I can feel this going through me. I hope I don't start crying. But
It's okay to
the
cry.
moment, the moment that I started giving even a fraction of what she offered me, our lives just changed. And she was one of those people that were never happy. And that has changed. And I might talk a little later about I've seen her, what she's done for her son, who's a mentally disabled veteran through a lot of problems and things. And that's where, even in later life, he's 46 years old, 47, something like that. Her love and support, she's there for him no matter what. And I had the same thing in my life. So I just wanted to share that. But the thing that keeps people into recovery is giving back in whatever way they find they can. That's our experience, and that's what we're taught there.
Very much so. I value that point, and it threw me into a cultural norm that prevents us from giving and receiving on a balanced scale in relationships. I thank you so much, Tommy, for raising that, because there is a culture, and I think it's global, where a man is and is ordained by God to be priest, provider, and protector in his home, but he is also given an helpmate. And when you put beside him what the Bible says, when a man finds a wife, he has found a good thing.
Good
Of
woman.
course,
Right.
we're talking about a good wife, the virtuous woman, those things that adds up, because they are defaults in everything. But let's look, when a woman loses her job, goes to college, the two of them get the same degree, they come out, they come together in a relationship, they are doing well. But when the lady loses her job, it is the norm. Persons don't get flustered. Persons don't say you need to get something to help to pay the bills. You need to do that. But let this man lose his job for the same period. And he's not looking hard enough. And he's not a man. And he's to do much better. And he needs to provide for his family. The support system is very imbalanced. And that in itself, that creates an imbalance in giving and receiving, because as much as you have received, you are to freely give. So the same adjustment that would have been given to the woman when she is not getting the job, when she has failed, is the same adjustment and sacrifice that must be made from a holistic and collective level when the man is not finding the job as quickly
Yeah.
as he wants. I know it might be a little distressing for people to hear, because we have been schooled from we were born to believe that the man must make blood out of stone at all times, regardless of the situation, no matter what it is. And the woman must be nurtured and supported. And when life happens and people come together, it is a there are times in life when we are required to give more than we receive, and there are times in life when
Yes.
we are required to receive more than we give. That's just it. When that time comes, we must know when to endure, and we must know when to evolve, regardless of what side of it we are, whether we are males or females. And so that balance in giving, we must strike that also, and we must make people understand that in giving and receiving, there are times when there are winter seasons, but it is in the same interaction, it is in the same exchange. And so we must not have it in extremes. It must be balanced at all times, and we must make ourselves able to give, and also to be receivers of joy, of the fulfillment that we spoke about earlier, when we change lives, when we help people who are struggling, when we help people who are recovering, when we help people who are fumbling through the dark, because they get to that place. There must be that receiving of joy, because the giving does not always give us tangible returns. It gives us eternal returns that change our characters and make us better people, and add value to our life, and illuminate the path that we are supposed to be on. But we have to open ourselves. The universe gives to us, and is carrying on its way to us what we are desiring. Whatever we want, the universe is bringing it to us. And so we are met halfway in the receiving and the giving, because we have to always give to receive. And that is the law of it. We have to always give to receive. And for those who doubt it, the Bible does support that view. It is better to give than
Than
to
to
receive.
receive. Right.
Yes.
Can I jump on the unbalance and the balancing for a minute? I want to bring back something Tommy said and add on to what Dr. Marcy is saying about balance. So I asked you a true or false question, but addiction is a form of self-medication, right? So we have all of these laws about addicts and addiction, and we emotionally, socially, so meaning personally feeling, or we conform to our groups that we associate with. And we look at these at addiction, whether it's drug addiction, it can be shopping addiction, it can be a sexual addiction, or just whatever it is, right? We take this thing, which is basically what I understand is the overall need and understanding of the biology. Your body and psyche is trying to satisfy something. It's asking you, trying to tell you something. And just from what we learn and we see in society, we go to these different things to try to fix that. But as you understand and you learn more, you find more tools to satisfy this, what we call a void. But it's not a void at all, because a void is a space of nothingness. And your craving doesn't come from nothingness. It comes from somethingness, right? Why our children are in the streets killing each other off is not because they have a bunch of emptiness inside them, a bunch of nothingness inside them. That doesn't make sense, right? It's that there's something that's off of this biology and the environment that it's been placed in, right? So it's to the point of this. We look at our kids and what we're talking about in this balance and everything. And I'm mentioning this because you can take the cleanest and the whitest of cottons, right? And you put it into a bowl of muddy water. And what's going to happen to that cotton? You take that same cotton and you put it into a bowl that's filled with minerals and water that's filled with gold, minerals, and the riches that you imagine in the world, right? What's going to happen to that cotton? And so our children are this cotton, and we're throwing them away in this bowl of dirt and mud that we live. Right. And so I just kind of want to remind us and bring us back to these things that we're talking about. We're as adults here, and yes, we're talking about it, but who are we really talking to, and what are we really talking about? Just trying to make it relatable in some way. So that finding that balance, and I bring that all back to this addiction. There's so many addictions. Whether we claim it, give it a label or not, we all have needs and cravings, and that is a way of self trying to medicate because of just what you know. So if we teach more, right, then they have more ways of, safer ways of self-medicating, and that's how we truly, honestly help ourselves and our people. Thanks.
But as you speak about self-medicating, Dr. Ross, we want to look at receiving in that way, because persons are to self-medicate. But if we are looking, I want to look at it from a metaphorical point of view. When you're giving your children, what you must teach them to be is masters of their own destiny, and not
Yes,
to become mirrors of anybody's thought.
true.
And so sometimes if we are looking at self-medication, we are looking at knowledge. Self-knowledge is extremely important, and knowledge in general is important, because from that point they are now able to make their own decisions, and they make informed decisions. So when they make choices, they are more able to live with the consequences. And so I love the point that you made about the addiction. I believe that as parents, some of us are of the mistaken idea that they must become better than us. They must reach a point where they teach us, and we are going to grow up. We are going to reach a situation where we can never teach them. They are going to become better than us, because we're going to send them to university. They are going to get degrees, and they're going to get great jobs and so on. But experience, the receiving and giving, is designed by God to give us experience, and it is this experience that is going to teach wisdom. So the child will come with a different set of knowledge that is in the present, because what they will do is pull us into the present, because we know regardless of our age and whether we were born in 1910 or or they being born to 2020. We have to live life in the present. And so when our experience pulls us into, if we are not dead, into where we are, and they actually bridge the gap between the past and the present. So we take them to the present and they take us into the future. And they take us into the future because the future is where they're going to live. We are gradually going down. And by the time some of us children, we reach 80, some of us children are just going to be 40. And so they are now going to have to guide us because we would now have become so entrenched and set in our ways that it's going to take a sledgehammer to pull some of us out, even to use the bank, even to this to go into a vehicle at a certain point. And some of us have it with our parents. We have it with our aunts who have grown and gotten old, and we see the direction we are going in, and we are saying, you're gonna have a warm time with us children, and they know already, and we are dictating what we don't want to happen to us when we are getting to a certain age and where we don't want to live. And so the burden is already pushed upon our children. That's what we are giving to them. What they are receiving from us is strength and courage and endurance, because they carry the DNA that we have, and God is good about that, the DNA. And that's why every one of us, our children, fingerprint, no matter if they are born in the same home and even if they are twins, they are different, because God still gives them a window for them to be themselves and to use their unique gifts and talents to merge with other people, to collaborate, to make life good for them, to continue a certain level of giving and receiving. And as we start out, we start out as children, giving and receiving. When we are babies, we receive more than we give. But that receiving makes us become independent. So we desire less and less. And that is the progression of true giving and receiving. It must become a point where those who we are given to require less and less, and they begin to give from the fountain that we have given to them. So they give to someone else that becomes so mature that they require less and less. And that is the only way that giving and receiving becomes imbalance. When you have gotten enough, when your cup is full and running over, you begin to pour into someone else's cup. And it's not that the process stops, is that the process now is exchanged and somebody else carries this baton in this relay that we call life. If we do not allow, and so when we make our children, we give so much to them that when we are to stop giving, we continue giving. So they get this sense of entitlement. We have done them a great disservice, and the society bears the weight of that, because they move into every environment expecting to have this sense of entitlement, and they are never grateful, and they do not continue this giving. And so there is this delay and there is this halting that causes displacement and a misalignment that we continually have to adjust as this generation is moving out and out, because we have this idea in our head that they are not to become resilient, and for them to become resilient, they are not to experience what we experience. But there is nobody that learns to swim on land. They have to go into the water. Anytime you find one that does that, just give me the heads up, because I'd love to learn how.
Wow.
Lady J and Lady K, you see how powerful, not just the voice, the accent, but actually the meaning behind the words. And this is why I always enjoy going into a room, listening, and taking in, embracing what Dr. Marcia has to say. And for myself, I want to bring to something really simple as we get into this last 10 minutes here of, I don't know if you're going to extend the show or what have you, but I want to put a simple call to action to what we're saying. I want you guys to try it. If you guys are teachers that's listening, or you got summer camps or whatever, you got a family, try it even with your family. But I want you to do something. This is kind of generational learning lab exercise. It's just about giving and receiving, right? And it's something as simple as this: reading out loud. us as minorities, we have a problem. You know, we've been trained not to read out loud and to be embarrassed. So I would like you to do an exercise for yourself. And this is a giving and receiving exercise. Because I want you to embrace a group of young individuals, and I want you to ask them to read out loud something, right? And see how much you get back. But then in the next scenario, I want you to actually read out loud to the same group of young individuals. Give first, right? And without even asking, but you can still then ask. I want you to give in that, show them. This is why it's important to have a father around, to have a mother around, because they see, they hear, they smell, they taste, they touch. Their five senses is on us every day, all day, right? But I want you to, in your classrooms, demand your students to do something, but in the same scenario, another day, I want you to do that thing, right? With them, for them. And then ask them to engage you in that thing and see how much give you get, right? We talk about giving and receiving. It's a simple exercise called no technology at all. I want you all to try it. Come back here. If it didn't work or if it went another way, please, I dare you to come on and challenge. You can come find me. The Lady J and Lady K know how to get to me. Even Dr. Marcy, if you pay her enough. Listen, I want you guys to try this. I really mean this. It's an exercise that you can try within your own family. And see what we mean about giving and receiving. Dr. Marcia?
Yeah.
Bring us home.
Well, let me say this before she speaks. You know, we're talking a little bit more in depth, not only giving and receiving from the material aspect of it, but we're talking about the social and emotional aspect of it as well here. And so that's what the two doctors kind of covered. But here's something that people should think about too, when you're giving or receiving, is no matter how small your give is or the receive, it's still important that you do that, because that's going to be a lesson to somebody who's watching, who may not have the courage to or even the thought of, you know, because like we said, if they came from an environment where they never received anything that was, you know, not without conditions attached to it, then they don't know how to do that. And so when they see it done, they then have some idea of, oh, that's what it looks like. But they still don't know what it feels like at this point, but they know what it looks like, you know. So I think that overall, I think people should just act on their own emotion. If you're not for sure, if you just do it, you'll find out what that feels like, you know. I'll say this real quick, and then I'm gonna shut up. I spoke in a prison setting once a few years ago, and after I got through speaking, one of the guys came up to the side and wanted to talk to me private for a second, right? So they allowed him to speak to me, and what he wanted to tell me is that he didn't know how to read. He was 35 years old, right? And the doctor just talked about this. He was 35 years old, and he didn't know how to read. He had went through all high school, a little bit of college before he you know, got caught up with. They realized he couldn't read, so of course he flunked out. But he had a kid, and the shame that he felt was, he told me that the first time his kid came to him and bought a book to him, he couldn't face him because he couldn't tell his kid that he could not read. So it made him feel like he was smaller than and I think he said the son was like 5 or 6 years old at the time. But it put him in a position to where now he had to live that shame. And so what I told him, I asked him, well, do you really want to try to learn how to read at this point? Or are you just speaking about, you know, how you feel emotionally? And what he said was that he really wanted to try to learn it. And so I told him the steps that he needed to take in order to do this. And I talked to some of the people before I left there, and they put him in a program where he could start the process of learning how to actually read. And so you never know, you know, giving and receiving, or it's a complex thing. It's not as simple as the topic sounds like it is, and as the title suggests it is, when you start, as you see, we've talked real in depth about this. And
Yeah.
so as you see, it's a complex situation and conversation to have, but I think everybody should have one at some point, even whether it's with their kids, grandkids, or their partner, whoever, else would want to have such a conversation. I think it's something that people should talk about. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Well. Dr. Marcia?
What I want to say that came out of the of Tommy and resonated with me very much, and Will and Dr. Ross, is that giving and receiving requires a degree of surrender that a lot of us are not willing to
Wow.
indulge in. We have to possess a certain type of humility when we're giving, in order not to be always expecting something in return, tying down people, making people feel that they must give back and so on. And we must also have that sense of humility also to be able to receive when we need, because none of us are islands. And at some point in our life, we are going to be at the receiving end, when we have to receive instead of give. And there are times when we are going to be required to give, and surrender everything in the giving, for the growth and for the change and for the deliverance that we need. Now, in doing that, I believe that we have to be able to read situations so that we don't overgive or over receive. So we have to know when to pull back, because sometimes we keep giving when we should be allowing persons to give.
Yes.
And everybody has something to give, because what you have to give is not always tangible. It
True. True.
can be that you're just
Thank
giving
you.
a smile.
Yes.
It
Yes.
can be that you're just receiving a hug. And,
Yes.
and and those things have so much value when they are given at the right time.
Time.
Beautiful.
If that father, for example, would have surrendered his pride, his 5-year-old would maybe be the person that could teach him to read.
That's right.
And
Yes.
so we want to understand that surrender is a very powerful tool that we need when we are giving. And that is why mothers do so well, because mothers go into it fully surrendered. Because you see, life doesn't give us manual, life gives us mothers.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
mothers, for some reason, just knows how to do the right things. And those mothers who get it wrong because they have not surrendered. They have not opened themselves to learn. They are selfish. They are not really giving. A mother who is really giving understands what it is. And I want to end with a story that I want us to understand in the law of giving and receiving. Solomon had a situation where a mother, two mothers, one had a child and the child died, and she exchanged it.
Mm-hmm.
But she refused to give that child up. And Solomon, in his wisdom, knew that this is a time when he should be giving something of value, because life is made up of giving and receiving. And so he said, okay, I am going to make sure that both of you get. So I'm going to cut that child in two. The mother, who really understood what it means to be fully surrendered and sacrificially love and give up her child, said, I cannot bear for my child to be cut in any two, give her. And so the real mother showed up at that point and got the reward, where she got back her child. It could have worked another way, it could have gone another way, if the mother was not fully surrendered in giving up of herself for the benefit of the next person. When we truly give, we are giving up everything that is in our power at that point to enable someone else to become who we are, and to reveal what is good in them and nurture what is good in them. Because giving of yourself does not mean that you give up yourself. You
True.
are exchanging what is good in you and you are collaborating with what is good in the next person.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes us very long to get to that point. It takes us very far to understanding the depending on the baggage that we are carrying, the
True.
trauma that we are carrying, the experience that we are carrying, the motivations we are carrying, the interpretations that we are carrying because of how life has carried us. And so for that reason, we cannot be truly free unless we surrender in the process of giving and we surrender in receiving, meaning that we give those good parts of us to people and treat people the way we want to be treated, was the position reverse, and be brave enough to attempt that if in the process of surrendering and giving up someone has not yet gotten to the place that we have gotten, we will wait on them, we will just wait on them.
Wow.
Can I just say, while you were speaking, I had to get up and go to the other room, and I got the approval. So life doesn't give you manuals; it gives you mothers. Was approved by Mama G, Dr. Marcia. So you're good to go.
Wow. This was a very, very interactive conversation, and there is so many information was given here this evening. And it helps us to understand the true meaning, the power of giving and receiving. And it also helps us to understand the word reciprocity, because, for instance, like a simple hug, some people they don't even know how to receive that.
It's true.
A simple hug, some people just don't know how to receive that. Sometimes you reach out to give a person a hug, you can feel that energy, they're not receiving it. They may bring their hands back, but the hands, you can know that that's not genuine. You know, they cannot receive it. Or a simple thank you. People cannot even receive a simple thank you, you know. And listening to Dr. Ross, Tommy Thompson, Will, and Dr. Marcy, and Lady J, it helps us to understand that it all comes down from where you came from. It has to do with where you came from, because the thing is that whatever mold you came out of, that is what you are today. And I like when Dr. Marcy said surrender. A lot of times we become adults, but we are still fetching those baggages. We're still taking those baggages because we're not healed. And the baggages is weighing us down, but we are not surrendering. We are still holding on to it pretty tight. And we are at an age whereby we can understand we're not a little child anymore. We can understand that these things that we are carrying around, they're not serving us well any longer. And we need to let it go. But we know it's not easy. It's not an easy thing said and done. It's a process. It's a process that we all have to go through in order to let these baggages go. There are things that we need that we had before, but there are certain things we gotta just let that go. But you have to have the right type of tools with you to understand what to keep and what to let go. Because as we move through life, there are certain modalities that we need in order to guide us and to steer us into the right direction that we need to go. And the thing is that we have a choice. We all have choices. And if something is in our life that we see that is not serving us, we have a choice, and to make that conscious choice that this is not serving me any longer and I need to let it go. Because giving and receiving, it has to be a balance. There is a balance there. And you have to balance it. You're the one who got to balance it. Dr. Ross, I see you're edging. You need to say something.
No, you just have some thoughts coming up, and this is obviously going to have to go into another show. But from what you're saying and what we talked about is just laying the foundation for something interesting. Because as you mentioned the giving and the receiving and not being able to do that, I thought about something. And now we're all grown ups here, but this is real conversation, right? So when you look at individuals 65 and older, and then you look at individuals 25 to 40, I believe it is, there's a reverse in affection, emotions, expression in this, in that if you survey males in this society right now, 25 to 40 years old, you'd be surprised the last time a number of these individuals have been touched by a woman, have had any affectionate words said to them. It's on a decline, and there's a problem, and there's a dissonance between our youth and the young ladies, and how are we supposed to go on as a species if that's the issue. And then you counterbalance that with aging in place and living well in the technologies and what's going on, where there's real issues where now there's pressure and increasing pressure on older and older women to remain in this sexually active state because their male counterparts now, that's a real discussion and a part of a conversation as far as being adults in relationships, right? We have to take on more burden of being sexually active older because it's just more of the conversation and what's happening. These are two similar but very distinct conversations that are very important to have in our society, in our communities, in our families, in our homes. And so while you were speaking, that's what I thought about.
Good pointers. Very, very good pointers. Lady J?
Wow. 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 We have to do part two.
Yeah.
Maybe if everyone, I'm just putting on the spot, if everyone is available, we can do part two next Sunday, if that is possible. I guess we'll talk more, chat after show. But we started off with, and the topic or the theme is the power of giving and receiving. And as well as you rightly said, this conversation was very in depth, because with Dr. Oz, with Tommy, with Dr. Marcia, and Lady K and myself, we really have dived very deep into this subject, which has really given us a broad overview of this whole subject and how we think about giving and how we think about receiving, and its misalignment and too much giving and not able to receive. And so much came out of it. It was such a good discussion, because a lot of people struggle with receiving. A lot of people struggle with how to give. If you're as Dr. Marcia I'd outline, if you don't, you should be able to give in the right place. And I think that speaks about a level of discernment, because you keep pouring and you keep giving into someone and you're expecting in return. And then when you're not able to have that expectation be fulfilled, then you become resented, because you're expecting that I am pouring so much, whatever area it may be, for someone or for a lot of people, and I'm expecting, but not understanding that where you're pouring is not the place you're supposed to pour into. It's not the place you're supposed to be giving into. So it's misaligned. So all those things that came out of this discussion was so beautiful. It's beautiful. And when Dr. Raz also touched on my happy genes and went into explain about how that was emerged with Dr. J. Dunn, and with Tommy spoke about, Tommy, we like how you brought the scripture in Isaiah 55. We were so delighted that you touched on that, and everything that was pointed out tonight, and everything that was, you expanded, our toolbox were expanded tonight, because we got so much to think about as we move through the week and evolve forward in our lives, to think about how do we give. And when we're using the power of giving, Is it misaligned? Is it the right place we're giving? And what about our expectation? Are we expecting? Are we expecting too much? Are we paying it forward? Are we able to focus on the art of receiving? That if someone exchange a gift to us for some reason, we must able to accept. But then it also was outlined that sometimes it's conditioning where you came from. Sometimes you never knew how to. Nothing was ever given to you, so you always had to fight, and always had to be self sufficient, and nothing was ever given to you. So that is why we got to do part two, because it's a really really good subject, and we all can benefit from it. The art of giving and receiving. So this was such a great topic, and thank you, Dr. Raz, Will, Dr. Marcia, and Tommy for sitting with us for these 2 hours and change, and helping us to understand and outlining so much for us tonight. And for the audience, we thank you so much. And for 246 page and family and everyone else on our social media, we thank you for being part of this discussion, and look forward for more discussion with this topic as well.
Yeah, you know, it's Dr. Ross, you want to say something?
How do I get like? I would like an episode to be sponsored by Focal Health and the prostate awareness stuff, so that we can kind of do this before the show, leading up to the show, because in our community, minority males and women too, we can talk about. But it's the issue again of giving and receiving. When you look at the statistics as far as the clinical medical establishment, giving and offering pre-cancer screening is
Mm.
significantly less, right, when it comes to our minorities, as opposed to the counterparts. However, when you look at the statistics of prevalence, which you know, we have a higher prevalence rate. We get it sooner, right? So there should be that conversation should be given, elicited more.
Mhm.
However, it's done significantly less, not even at the same rate, despite the fact that at larger numbers and sooner in age, it's something we have to deal with. So it's important. I'm a minority male, right? I'm about to be 50. I'm dealing with this just due to life experiences. I'm physically, biologically about to be 50, but I feel like 60, right? Because of the things. And now, because of the wear and tear on that, I'm able to get into these programs because they're like, man, you look beat down. You come on in, right? But I say this to say, Emory University ADRC, the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, has a community effort going on the second Thursday of every month from 9 a.m. till noon for minority males only, here in Atlanta. And so, I promote that a lot in the things that I do because it's the forgotten individuals, males in our society that's built our society, that's dealing with these issues and things that I'm talking about. And then our sons, whether they're here or at field and war or what have you, that having to deal with this early onset in our community, whether that comes from environment that you live in, whether it comes from the nutrition and what you're eating, whether it comes from behavior, all of these things need to be put in our conversation, right? And so again, I'd like to see how I don't have the financial thing to throw you guys money like that, but let's talk with the organization and figure out how can we, right, position and bring some value to each other where we can make it a thing so they know when they see these episodes of gut health and what we're talking about, it's also a banner and a flyer for prostate cancer awareness or just cervical cancer awareness as well. I have a partner on the other end, a business partner who last 2 weeks ago, had parts of his cervix removed because of cervical cancer. He's going into radiation treatments tomorrow. This is affecting the business that we have and we run together as entrepreneurs in the real world, right? I have another colleague who's very brilliant guy, West Point grad, all of this, companies going, dealing with leukemia and this and that. This is a real thing in my real world with real people I deal with. And I'd like to promote, as we talk about health and wellness, that's something I have hands on technologies with the focal health fusion and those guys with an actual semi-robotic device that does this type of testing. And I shamelessly plug this stuff because, yeah, I can make money off of it, but that's not the point. This can save a life. This can save one of our lives. And so, I would like to somehow bring that in sponsorship and support of that, even if by promoting that in this space and the information, and we sell one of those devices to the clinic, I give you guys 50% of whatever. You can even have 100% of whatever, as long as we're getting the information out and it's making a difference. I'll shamelessly ask, and that's it. I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Wow. This is a food for thought. Yes, yes, because as you rightfully said, awareness, people need to be educated about a lot of things out there, and you're talking about cervical cancer, you're talking about Alzheimer's, people not, their articles are there, but people are not educated enough hands-on of exactly what's really happening, and we need to bring the awareness. It's all about awareness to help people to understand in depth about these diseases and how it's affecting the body and how it's affecting families as well, because if a husband has cancer, how it is going to affect the wife. If the wife have cancer, how it is going to affect the husband. Who are the persons rallying around her? Does she has a support group? Does the man has a support group? All these things has to come into consideration with all of these areas in someone's life. So we need to shed light on these things to help people to understand, where can I go to get help? Who can I talk to? All of these things need to line up an individual. And many times people are lost. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to contact. They are just in that vacuum by themselves. And if we could bring this awareness to people, is to help them to understand, what? There is a space that I can go and I can talk to this individual. I could talk to these individuals to get the kind of help that I need, whether it's a support help, whether it's a therapist, whatever help it is. That person can rest assured I can go there and get the help that I need. So it's very good how you bring up that point, Dr. Ross. Lady J, can you shed some
Yeah.
light on this as well?
Yeah, the point is, that is why it's great to have discussion, because as we provide information and have the specialist and the expert on and talk about it, more awareness, and as someone listen live and catch us on a replay, it's more comforting to know that these are the subjects that are being discussed, and it might affect you, it might affect your family or someone, but the knowledge and the information is there so that you can follow up with that. See your specialist in your ear, but the awareness is what is important. So it's great that Dr. Raz, that you shed light on this topic and these things, so that we can know that, we can have more discussion, bringing in the experts together with your team and everything, and so that we can talk more about it and how we can help people to live and thrive.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And to the audience, we just want to thank you guys so much for joining us this evening on IG, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We just want to thank you guys for joining us on LinkedIn as well, for joining us this evening, because your presence means a lot to us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come into this space, there's something that you can walk away with, and you can even share this podcast with someone who is going through whatever situation they're going through. This podcast could always give them some sort of hope. And they could feel free to reach out to any one of these guests that is on this podcast here and have a discussion with them, because all of their information is in the notes below. And we just want to thank you so much to all the guests Dr. Ross, thank you so much for taking your time out of this busy schedule and sitting with us this evening. Well, we want to thank you as
Mhm.
well for taking time and sitting with us. Tommy Thompson, I want to thank you so much. And I know Joan feels the same. We want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time because we know it's Mother's Day. And you taking the time to shed some light in the power of giving and receiving because this subject really needs to be discussed
Mhm.
because a lot of people are struggling with this subject. And Dr. Marcy as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion because you
Yeah.
really give us some really good tools,
Let's
Dr.
give a round of
Marcy.
applause for everybody who was here tonight.
Yes, give us some really good tools
Great,
this evening, you
great,
know?
great, great,
Yeah, the
great.
power of giving and receiving. It isn't just a principle, it's a way of being.
Hmm.
It's a way of being. And when we honor both, we cultivate a deeper relationship. We get, you feel more fulfilled
Right.
and more abundant. You feel more abundantly filled. That is how you feel, more
That's the
abundantly
word.
filled.
Amon.
And so today we challenge you to recognize where you give effortlessly and where you hesitate to
True.
receive. Where you give effortlessly
That's a
and where
good
you
one.
hesitate
Good
to
one, lady. Good
receive.
one, Lady K.
Pay attention to
Yeah.
that, you know,
Hmm.
and let's shift the narrative. Let's welcome balance. We need to
Hmm.
welcome balance into our lives, you know, because we are not looking at things to balance it out. We need to shift that. And most of all, let's nourish ourselves as we can continue to uplift those we love.
That's so
Continue to
true.
nourish yourself as you continue to uplift those that you love, you know. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Until we meet next time, keep giving with grace and receiving with gratitude.
That's beautiful. And also live. And also, I just want to throw this piece in. Live a life of alignment.
Yes,
Live
yes.
a life of alignment.
Hey, ladies, we're gonna have to talk, and Tanya, definitely we need to connect. But so we're gonna have to talk about. I'm gonna need you, ladies. We're gonna work something out. But I have my dirty hours every Wednesday from 6 to 9, and I think you ladies will be a really good host for this. But we have 3 dirty hours, and dirty stands for digital immersive reality training year round. And in that, we do a lot. We do just about anything, whatever you're interested in. But right now, it's focused on agriculture and farming and nutrition and things like that. We got summer camps coming up. But what we do is create a digital space where ABODs, able-bodied adults without dependents, can actually come and earn their required time to keep their SNAP benefits and their EBT cards. So it's tied to an actual state program. So let's see how we can work out. I can get you about $16 an hour to do this for me, but to be the host for the 3 dirty hours, it would be really awesome. We're expanding to do much more. I'm going on a marathon to have about 140 hours of brain training going, and you can just tap in at any time. I'm not going to ask you ladies to do that this year, but the 3 dirty hours every Wednesday, we can definitely get some sponsorship behind it. And 6 to 9 every Wednesday, all year round. And we want to make it a big thing, but it's an opportunity for anyone, anywhere to come in as an ABOD, where we have opportunities in labor, marketing, and the third one is administration. And we can hire you based on the state rate to help in all of our things that we do, whether for profit, nonprofit, but it's opportunity to create work. And then you can also come in for those 3 hours, tap in virtually, and you can learn whatever you want to learn. But as long as you're documenting that time with us, it can satisfy required time you need to keep your actual food stamp benefits and eligibility requirements for state programs. So 3 dirty hours for digital immersive reality training year round. And this summer we have Dirty Kids, which is digital immersive reality trained youth, knowledge in discovering STEM, STEAM, and STREAM. So KIDS. But I'd like you ladies to be a host of some
Good.
things that I'm doing like this, and that's one offer coming up. So that's it. I'm gonna
Okay.
shut up now.
Okay. we take the conversation
Off
off,
air.
and we will, and not forgetting we have Will here too, which handle so much too as well. So I guess we will have a conversation with Will too as well, and
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes.
Marcia and
With,
Tommy.
with,
So
with all
And
these
Tommy.
ladies extra time. Yeah.
living a life of service, and that's what it's about. Serving
Exactly.
Yes.
others.
They
Living
do.
a life of service. Yes.
Yeah.
You ladies bring it. These
Thank you.
ladies do about a 20-hour day. Both of them are actually at work right now as caregivers. And yeah, this is just who they are.
Yes.
Living a life of service.
Living a life of
So
service. Yes.
this was such a great evening, and
Yes.
it's
It
it's
was.
a
It
good
was.
conversation.
It was. But you know
So
what? It's always a blessing to collaborate
mhm.
and to have you guys in this space, because you guys bring it home. It was so enriching. It was nourishing. It
Right.
was fulfilling, and thank you guys so much for always showing up and being a part of enrichment of mind, body, and soul, or soul,
Mhm.
light, and body, or the reflective speaker series. Thank you guys so much for just being a part of it. We really appreciate it. We love you guys so much. And
Yeah.
thank you once again. And to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. And to the men who playing the role of a mother, happy Mother's Day to you
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
well. The caregivers who are playing that role, happy Mother's Day to you as well.
Mhm.
And thank you guys for all that you do. If nobody never tell you this, just
We
know you're
thank you.
doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much. Give
Right.
yourself a hug.
True. And for 246 Beijing family, we just want to congratulate all the women there as well for all the
Yes.
greatness that what they're doing.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Love you guys and have a
Love you all.
fabulous week. See you guys here next week. And don't
Yes.
forget to subscribe to Soul Light and Body, that you'll never miss none of this episode. Also, 246 Beijing Vibes family have a classified apps. Just go and check it out. Nice goods and services. Check it out. Bye-bye. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Send me all your stuff so I could promote you guys too before the show all week. Let's go.
Let's
Okay.
go. Let's do this.
Oh my goodness.